And my pleasure as well to introduce our next speaker, Richard West.
Hey, thank you everyone. I'm excited to be here at the Badge Summit. Excited to be here. I've been involved in the badging community for about a decade, and just like Noah was saying, we have accomplished a lot. So congratulations to us, congratulations to the badge community. We've come a long way in 10 years. But what I want to talk about today is what I think the next step needs to be, and how we need to be careful about progressing our badges past just looking at competencies and skills, and also thinking about how badges can affect community. So we know that higher education, well, just education in general, needs to change. And we need to progress. And all of the sessions today have talked about it so far. The speakers have talked about how we need to come into the 21st century and not get left behind in education. And I agree with that. But if we're going to change, what do we need to change to? And I think in order to understand what we need to become, we need to reflect and think about what are the key aspects of education that we value and want to retain in our educational systems. And for me, these things are what I call the 3 C's. It's the content of what people are learning. It's the credentials, which I also include assessments and feedback, which are telling the students what they've learned and how they've progressed. And it's also communicating to other people what they know. But I also think it's the community, and I think that's really important. It's the difference between reading a book and signing up for education. It's we go there for an experience with other people, a shared experience. And I think we need to be careful that we don't lose the community as we revise these other aspects of education. So can Open Badges help us with this? And I think some of these are pretty obvious. We know that Open Badges are having a radical effect on credentials and the way we think about recognition and what kinds of learning can get recognized and when learning can get recognized and by whom and how. So we're having a great impact on recognition and credentials. I also think Open Badges are changing the way we think about content. Content, we now think of it in terms of micro packages that are stackable and connectable rather than macro. We're breaking free from what I call the tyranny of the Carnegie credit hour. You know, does learning always have to be 3 credit hours in 15 weeks? You know, no. We're thinking about learning in different ways. So I think we're changing how we think about content too. But I worry about community. And here's the reason why I worry about it. Because we are in a crisis of isolation and connection, or lack of connection. Because relationships are really important. And here, if we're not careful, we're going to accelerate what I think is the reduction of education down to little bits and pieces that are disconnected from each other. Thank you. Yeah. Because that's not what education is. It's not just little bits that are disconnected from each other and not learned in isolation of other people. And I worry that with Open Badges, with our enthusiasm for Open Badges, we're going to accelerate and throw fire on this trajectory and get us down to little bits of learning that people are going to do at home and on their own and never connect with other people. And I don't think that's what we want. But I think we need to be careful that that's not what we end up with at the end of the day. And this is what I was talking about, is the crisis of human connection. And this is why this is important. Now this data was from 2019, and 61% of adults said they felt lonely. Most of us are feeling lonely. And with Generation Z, it's 80% say they feel lonely. Now I know this was the pandemic. That's kind of a special situation because we were all at home learning. Except for what if in the future we're all at home learning? Then maybe it'll be more similar than we thought. And I don't want us to be having this crisis of connection in the future. So for all of this, my proposal is we need to think as badgers, apologies to those who don't like that term, but all of us as badgers need to think about how badges can increase community and connection. And I think there's 4 ways we can do that. I think we can create badges that ask learners and incentivize learners to contribute to communities. We can create badges where the learning has to happen by connecting through communities. It's the only way the learning can happen. That we can do badges that connect and bridge different communities together so that different groups of people start connecting. And I think we can also do badges where they are endorsed by people in the community. And I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to share just one quick example of kind of what I mean by this. Badges that incentivize people to contribute to community could be badges on things like volunteering and service and mentoring. This is where you're recognizing their contribution to the community is valuable, and you're badging that contribution. As an example of badging that is learned through or gained through the community, I really like the example of Gentle Student, which was out of Ghent, and their idea was to get the students from campus, off campus, and into their community, interacting with people in the community. They got partners in the community to offer learning experiences to the students, created an app, and said, students, if you go out throughout the community, you'll find people and places where you can learn things and earn badges. But the badges were only available in the community, getting outside of themselves and outside of their little bubble. I really like that. Badges that help to bridge different communities, and here, this is very well known here in the Colorado area. This was Aurora Public Schools, and they had two different groups of people. They had students and educators, and they were frustrated with how students were not graduating, not getting jobs, and struggling with that. And then there were the employers who were frustrated that they didn't have people qualified for the jobs they wanted. And a lot of times, these two communities don't talk to each other. And what they did here is went to the employers and said, what are the skills that you care about? And if we create badges for students to earn, and they earn those badges, will you give those students interviews, internships, experiences, some kind of reward for doing that? And this benefited, of course, the students and the employers, but more, it created a feedback loop, as the director said, between these two communities, where the badges were the way these two communities were connecting to each other in powerful ways. Finally, badges where they are endorsed by people in a community. And for here, I'm going to reference the work that we're doing in Utah, where I'm from, Brigham Young University. The Utah Department of Education is creating badges for teacher professional learning. And while the State Office of Education and the local school districts are creating the badges and the content and the rubrics and the assessments, the people doing the assessing and the reviewing and the feedback are other teachers. So teachers upload their evidence and get feedback from another teacher in order to be able to get this badge for professional learning. So they're getting endorsed or reviewed or connected with people in their community who are giving them feedback. So in conclusion, I think for open badging to be successful, we need badges to do more than just skills and competencies, even though that's important. We need badges that require us to come together instead of giving us reasons to isolate. And thank you very much. I hope if you're interested in this, you'll come talk to me and we'll connect, form a community, and work on this together.